Listen to me. Everybody wants the spotlight. But the spotlight makes noise. Everybody wants to announce. But announcements leak power. If you want everything in 2026, here's the code. Be silent. Not weak, not invisible. Silent with purpose. Let me break it down. 6 truths. 6 shifts. 6 keys. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not shrinking. Silence is not stepping back. Silence is command. It is the conscious decision to stop leaking energy into places that do not serve your future. The moment you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you reclaim power. Think about how much time, breath, and emotional fuel gets burned trying to justify choices, dreams, boundaries, or growth. Silence cuts that drain instantly. It says, without saying anything, I know where I'm going. When you don't feel the need to narrate your life, you stop outsourcing your confidence. You no longer look for agreement to move forward. That is control. Real control. The kind that doesn't need applause to exist. Most people talk because they are unsure. They fill space with words because silence forces them to confront their own lack of preparation. Silence, on the other hand, is the natural language of someone who has done the work internally. When you're grounded, when your vision is clear, you don't rush to announce it. You understand that clarity doesn't beg to be heard. It waits. And in that waiting, something powerful happens. You begin to observe instead of perform. You start listening to the room, reading people, sensing timing. Silence trains discernment. You learn who's aligned, who's threatened, who's projecting, and who's irrelevant. That awareness becomes an advantage no amount of talking could ever buy. Silence also builds emotional authority. When you react verbally to every comment, every slight, every doubt thrown your way, you hand control to external forces. They get to decide your mood, your pace, your direction. Silence interrupts that cycle. It creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space lies mastery. You no longer get pulled into unnecessary battles. You stop explaining your worth to people who profit from you questioning it. The calm, measured presence of silence unsettles those who rely on chaos to feel important. They expect reaction. They feed on it. When it doesn't come, they lose leverage and you gain it. There is a reason disciplined people speak less. Silence forces accountability inward. When you talk less, you hear yourself think more clearly. You can't hide behind noise. You confront your habits, your inconsistencies, your excuses. Silence is a mirror. It shows you exactly where you are and exactly where you're not doing the work. That's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Growth doesn't happen in constant conversation. It happens in reflection, repetition, and restraint. When you stop broadcasting intentions, you start executing plans. When words decrease, action increases. Silence tightens the connection between thought and execution, and that connection is where results are born. Silence also protects momentum. Energy is finite. Every unnecessary conversation, every explanation, every argument siphons from the same reservoir you need to build, focus, and endure. Silence conserves that energy. It keeps your momentum clean, uninterrupted, and directed. When you move quietly, you move faster. You're not slowed down by opinions, expectations, or the pressure to perform progress instead of making it. Silence lets you fail privately, adjust quickly, and refine without ego. It gives you room to be a beginner without being labeled one. And by the time others notice, you're no longer starting, you're already strong. Finally, silence reshapes how the world responds to you. When you speak less, people listen more. Your words carry weight because they're rare. Your presence becomes intentional, not reactive. You're no longer part of the background noise. You're the shift in the room. Silence creates gravity. It forces others to project meaning onto you, and most will project strength. In a culture addicted to oversharing, restraint becomes intimidating. People sense depth even if they can't explain it, and depth commands respect. Not because you demanded it, but because silence made it undeniable. Silence is not the absence of power, it is the accumulation of it. Stay silent long enough, and by 2026 you won't need permission, validation, or an introduction. Your presence will answer every question before it's asked. The moment you announce your next move, you surrender a piece of it. Not because people are evil, but because access creates influence. The world doesn't just observe what it knows about you, it reacts to it, reshapes itself around it, and often tries to reshape you in return. When your plans are public, they are no longer pure. They get touched by opinions, expectations, comparisons, and subtle pressure to perform on a timeline that isn't yours. Silence protects the original intention. It keeps the vision clean. It allows your ideas to grow in an environment free from interference. Just like a seed doesn't break through concrete by shouting, your future doesn't need an audience while it's still forming. When you move in private, you stay the architect instead of becoming the project. Public movement invites management. People telling you how to do it, when to do it, why it won't work, or how they would do it better. Even well-meaning advice can dilute conviction. Silence keeps you sovereign. You get to test, adjust, and evolve without explaining every pivot. Growth is not linear, and privacy gives you permission to be inconsistent while becoming excellent. The most dangerous thing you can do is let unfinished versions of yourself be evaluated as final. Silence buys you time, and time is the most underrated form of leverage there is. There's also a psychological truth most people don't understand. When you tell people your plans, you unconsciously shift from execution to performance. You start thinking about how it looks instead of how it works. You begin measuring progress by reactions instead of results. That's how dreams die, slowly, politely, with encouragement instead of discipline. Private movement keeps your attention where it belongs, on the work. No likes to chase, no praise to maintain, no pressure to prove you're on track. Just you, the process, and the standard you refuse to lower. Silence eliminates the temptation to substitute talk for action. Operating quietly also shields you from unnecessary resistance. Not everyone wants to see you win, and not everyone needs to know where you're headed. Some people oppose you not because your plan is wrong, but because your growth disrupts their comfort. Silence removes their opportunity to interfere early. By the time results show up, resistance is too late. History is full of people who failed not because they lacked talent, but because they gave too many people access to their unfinished vision. Privacy isn't secrecy out of fear. It's strategy rooted in wisdom. You don't hide because you're weak. You hide because you're building something that deserves protection. Moving in private also strengthens your relationship with yourself. When no one is watching, you find out who you really are. You discover whether your commitment survives boredom, isolation, and slow progress. You learn to rely on internal standards instead of external approval. That builds a level of self-trust most people never experience. And once you trust yourself, you become unshakable. Silence turns discipline into identity. You don't need reminders. You don't need accountability posts. You show up because that's who you are now. And that transformation only happens when the work is done away from the noise. Eventually, there comes a moment when privacy ends. Not because you chose to speak, but because the results speak first. That's the difference. When you move quietly, success arrives loud. People notice the shift before they hear the story. They feel the change in your presence, your confidence, your options. And suddenly the same people who never knew your plan are asking how you did it. At that point, you're no longer managed by public opinion. You're respected by it. You didn't need validation to move, and now you don't need explanation to lead. Move in private long enough, and by 2026, you won't be controlled by expectations. Sell. Owed by opinions, or distracted by noise. You'll emerge not as someone asking for space, but as someone who owns it. Momentum is fragile long before it becomes visible. In its earliest stages, it's quiet, uncertain, and easily broken. Most people destroy their own momentum without realizing it, not through failure, but through exposure. They talk too early, they share too soon. They invite commentary before commitment is solid. Silence is what keeps momentum alive when it's still forming. It's what allows effort to compound instead of scatter. When you stay silent, you give your momentum a protected space to grow roots. You stop interrupting your own progress with explanations and updates. You let action stack on action without resetting your focus every time someone asks, "How's it going?" Every time you speak about what you're building, your brain gets a premature sense of completion. That's not motivation, that's sabotage. Neurologically, talking about future success can trigger the same reward centers as achieving it. The danger is subtle but real. Your mind feels accomplished while your reality remains unchanged. Silence blocks that false reward. It keeps hunger alive. It keeps the gap between where you are and where you want to be painfully clear. That discomfort becomes fuel. You don't lose urgency because you haven't convinced yourself you've already arrived. Silence makes sure the reward comes from execution, not conversation. Momentum also needs rhythm, and rhythm is destroyed by constant external input. When too many voices enter your process, you start adjusting unnecessarily. You second-guess timing. You question methods that were working. You shift direction to accommodate opinions that won't carry the consequences. Silence removes that interference. It allows you to find your natural pace, the speed at which you learn best, recover best, and perform best. Consistency thrives in quiet. The fewer people involved in your process, the fewer resets you experience. Momentum isn't about intensity, it's about continuity. Silence preserves that continuity when excitement fades and only discipline remains. There's another layer most people miss. Silence trains emotional endurance. Momentum isn't lost only through distraction. It's lost through emotional fatigue. Constantly talking about your progress makes you emotionally available to judgment, comparison, and doubt. Even praise can be exhausting when you feel pressured to live up to it. Silence removes that burden. You're no longer carrying the weight of others' expectations. You're only responsible for the work. That emotional lightness allows you to show up day after day without burning out. You stop performing confidence and start developing it. Momentum survives longer when it's not emotionally taxed. Silence also keeps failure useful. When you fail publicly, ego rushes in to defend identity. You start justifying instead of learning. But when you fail privately, failure becomes data. N.O.T. drama. You can analyze without embarrassment. You can adjust without explanation. You can try again without announcing a comeback. That's how momentum evolves instead of collapsing. Silence lets you fail forward repeatedly without losing belief in yourself. It protects your willingness to experiment, which is essential for long-term progress. The quiet path gives you more attempts, and more attempts increase the odds of mastery. Over time, something powerful happens. Because you stayed silent, your momentum outgrows fragility. It becomes stable, self-sustaining, undeniable. At that point, exposure no longer threatens it. You're no longer fueled by excitement. You're powered by systems, habits, and identity. Silence has done its job. You didn't rush to be seen. You committed to becoming strong. And when momentum finally becomes visible, it doesn't need protection anymore. It moves on its own, carrying you forward whether anyone is watching or not. Protect your momentum with silence now, and by 2026 you won't be chasing consistency, you'll be living inside it. What once needed guarding will move with such force that nothing can stop it. Most people never hear the truth because they never stop talking long enough to let it surface. Noise fills every gap. Opinions, reactions, distractions, explanations, and in that chaos, wisdom has no place to land. Silence clears the space. When you become quiet, not just outwardly but internally, you create room for reality to speak. You begin to notice patterns instead of isolated events. You sense when something feels off before it falls apart. You pick up on hesitation in voices, inconsistencies in actions, and opportunities hidden beneath routine. Truth rarely shouts, it waits. Silence is what trains you to recognize it when it arrives. When you stop rushing to respond, you gain access to a deeper level of understanding. Silence slows time just enough for clarity to form. Instead of reacting emotionally, you observe strategically. You hear what people say, but more importantly, you hear what they avoid saying. You notice who talks around issues instead of addressing them. You see who over-explains, who deflects, who changes tone when certain topics arise. This awareness is not about suspicion, it's about precision. Quiet people don't guess, they read. And in a world where most are blinded by their own reactions, the ability to read clearly becomes a decisive advantage. Silence also strengthens intuition, that internal signal most people ignore because it doesn't scream. Intuition whispers. It speaks through subtle discomfort, quiet alignment, and calm certainty. But intuition cannot compete with constant noise. When your life is filled with talking, scrolling, reacting, and seeking input, intuition gets drowned out. Silence turns the volume down on everything else so that inner guidance can finally be heard. Over time, you learn to trust it, not because it's mystical, but because it proves accurate. Decisi. Ons become cleaner. Regret decreases. You stop forcing outcomes that don't fit and start moving with a sense of timing that feels almost unfair to those who can't hear it. There is also a strategic power in letting others reveal themselves. When you speak less, people speak more. They fill the silence. And in doing so, they show you exactly who they are. Their priorities surface, their insecurities leak, their intentions become visible. Silence becomes a mirror that reflects others back to themselves. This is invaluable. You no longer have to interrogate or confront. You simply observe. Those who are aligned with you remain steady. Those who are not expose themselves through inconsistency, overreaction, or defensiveness. Quiet gives you information without conflict, insight without confrontation. Listening deeply also reshapes how you learn. When you're silent, you absorb more. You stop waiting for your turn to speak and start actually understanding. You learn from mistakes that aren't yours. You recognize systems instead of isolated tips. You begin connecting ideas across experiences, industries, and conversations. This kind of learning compounds. It builds wisdom, not just knowledge. Wisdom changes how you move. It helps you avoid traps you were never meant to fall into. Silence accelerates growth because it replaces shallow engagement with deep comprehension. As this practice continues, something profound happens. Your presence becomes intentional. You no longer enter company conversations to be seen. You enter them to see. You speak when it matters, and when you do, your words land. People feel it. They lean in. Not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. Silence has refined your voice by limiting its use. And clarity commands respect without demanding it. In a world overwhelmed by noise, the person who hears the truth first always moves first and moves best. Choose silence now, and by 2026, you won't be confused, reactive, or misled. You'll move with precision, guided by truths others never heard because they were too busy making noise. Most people spend their lives trying to be noticed, not realizing that attention is cheap and authority is rare. Attention can be bought, borrowed, or begged for. Authority cannot. Authority is built quietly, layer by layer, through work so consistent it removes the need for explanation. When you stop talking about what you're doing and start letting the work accumulate, something shifts. You are no longer competing for validation. You are positioning yourself beyond debate. Silence allows your output to grow without being interrupted by the need to impress. You don't need to convince anyone when the evidence is undeniable. At that level, your work doesn't ask for attention, it commands it. When you stay silent, your work gains a kind of purity. It is not shaped by trends, praise, or fear of criticism. It becomes an honest reflection of your standards. Loud environments reward shortcuts and surfer. CE level wins. Quiet environments reward depth. Silence gives you the patience to build things correctly instead of quickly. You take the extra step. You refine what others rush past. You master details most people ignore because they're too busy showing progress instead of making it. Over time, that depth compounds. And one day, people can't ignore what they don't fully understand, but desperately want to access. There is also power in unpredictability. When people don't know what you're working on, they can't categorize you prematurely. They can't box you in. Silence keeps you fluid. It allows you to evolve without being trapped by old labels or expectations. Then when your work finally appears, it disrupts assumptions. It exceeds the version of you people had in their heads. That gap between expectation and reality creates impact. Silence sets the stage for surprise, and surprise is one of the strongest forces in influence. People pay attention when their mental model collapses. Unignorable work is not loud, it's consistent. It shows up again and again, regardless of recognition. Silence trains you to work without applause, and that is a dangerous skill. When praise doesn't control you, you become relentless. You keep building on days when no one is watching. You improve when no one is clapping. You stay committed when there is no external reward. Most people quit in those moments. Silence keeps you there. It teaches you to respect the process more than the perception. And those who respect the process eventually outperform those who chase visibility. When your work becomes undeniable, the conversation changes. You're no longer asked to explain why you deserve a seat. You're asked what you want to do next. Opportunities stop requiring persuasion. People approach you with seriousness, not curiosity. This is the difference between being impressive and being influential. Influence comes from trust, and trust is built through results that repeat. Silence allowed those results to mature without pressure. It gave you time to fail privately, correct quietly, and return stronger without narrative or excuse. By the time the world notices, the foundation is already unshakable. Eventually, silence hands the microphone to your work. And your work speaks fluently. It speaks in outcomes, in consistency, in impact. It speaks in ways words never could. You don't need to announce your arrival because the room feels different when you enter it. You don't need to argue your worth because your presence changes the standard. Silence didn't make you invisible. It made you inevitable. Build in silence now. And by 2026, your work won't need promotion. It will stand so strong, so clear, so undeniable, that the world will have no choice but to pay attention. Silence is not meant to last forever. It is a season, a strategy, a sharpening. Too many people mistake quiet preparation for permanent hiding, but that misunderstanding keeps them from fully committing to the process. Silence has an expiration date, and it ends the moment readiness is complete. During this season, you are not absent. You are assembling. You are stacking skills, strengthening discipline, and aligning your internal world with the future you intend to step into. This kind of silence is intentional. It is chosen, not forced. And because it is chosen, it builds confidence instead of fear. You know you are not missing out. You are preparing to arrive differently. While others rush to speak before they're ready, silence allows you to mature without pressure. Growth requires mistakes, repetition, and recalibration. None of that looks impressive in real time. Silence gives you permission to be unfinished. You can stumble without being labeled. You can learn without being judged. You can evolve without having to defend every change. This freedom accelerates development. You don't waste energy managing perception. You invest it in mastery. By the time you step forward, you are no longer trying to become someone. You already are. Silence also refines your voice. When you don't speak often, you choose your words carefully. You learn the difference between what feels urgent and what is actually important. You stop reacting and start responding. That restraint carries weight. When you finally speak, it's not to fill space or seek approval, it's to move people. Your words land because they are backed by experience, not intention. They are informed by effort, not emotion. Silence transforms communication from noise into impact. It teaches you that timing matters as much as truth. There is a moment, quiet, internal, unmistakable, when you realize you are ready. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are solid. You are no longer easily shaken. You don't need permission to lead. You don't flinch at resistance. You don't crumble under scrutiny. Silence has done its work. It has built a foundation strong enough to carry attention without collapsing under it. At that point, visibility is no longer dangerous. It's useful. You can be seen without being swayed. You can be heard without being pulled off course. When silence ends and impact begins, it is permanent. Preparation compounds, skills don't disappear, discipline doesn't fade, the confidence built in private doesn't evaporate in public. This is why the transition feels effortless to others but knows it was earned. They call it luck, they call it timing. They don't see the years of quiet alignment that made the moment inevitable. Silence ensured that when the door opened, you were ready to walk through it without citation, or doubt. And when you finally step forward, you don't need to announce yourself. Your presence carries authority. Your actions set direction. Your voice shapes outcomes. Silence didn't delay your rise. It ensured it would last. You are not here to make noise for a moment. You are here to make impact that endures. Stay silent until you're ready, and by 2026 your emergence won't be temporary or fragile. It will be permanent, powerful, and impossible to ignore